Welcome to this Grief Journeys podcast. My name is Susan Biddle and I'm here today speaking with Viv Phung. We begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet. We would like to show our respect for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, past, present and emerging. Grief Journeys is a not-for-profit company providing therapeutic services and advocacy for people bereaved by suicide. Grief Journeys provides grief counselling and auspices a Facebook group as well as an online support group that meets once a month. Vivian is a bereaved mother who lost her only child B to suicide in 2019. The aim of our discussion is for Viv to share her grief journey so far and outline how art and craft has helped her to cope with the loss of her daughter. Viv, it's wonderful to meet and talk with you today. I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit about yourself and why you have decided to present this podcast.
Thanks, Susan. Hi, Susan. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. As mentioned in the introduction, my name is Viv, and I'm a bereaved mother. I lost my one and only daughter, B, in November 2019, just 3 months before her 18th birthday and 3 weeks before her high school graduation. B was living with depression and anxiety for 2 years prior to her departure. Despite from all what she had been enduring, she was very brave girl, bubbly, multi-talented, and quirky. She's very great with art, can play drums, such a creative girl, and participated in many creative activities. She also was very passionate about artificial intelligence and computer science. B did very well in her year 11 and 12 and got accepted into several universities at that time. She wanted to do both art and computer science at university, although she got offered to a defense civilian sponsored program and study cybersecurity. B was my only child, so losing her, I feel lost of all my life purpose and identity. I did go through several losses before, but losing my only child is such an unbearable pain that I don't think anyone who can ever imagine, or neither do I want them to. As a survivor, I have been trying to survive this out-of-order tragedy by trying different types of supports. While there are many things to help along the way, I don't think anything can take the pain away, but I'm learning to live with my grief and B's physical absence. Along the way, somehow art and craft happen to be one of the outlets that I consider is as a therapy for my grief journey. The reason why I'm here today, because I want to share my journey with you guys, is because I have been receiving a lot of support from fellow grievers when I started this difficult journey. A lot of stories and pains shared with me, experience, wisdom shared with me by the people who went ahead and further down the road. And they did give me some comfort and hope. So now after 2 years, I would like to share that what I learned so far and what helped me to other bereaved people, especially the parents who lost the only child like myself. And I hope it can help them a little bit or bring a little glimpse of hope in this dark journey. If you find anything helpful from what I share today, or if it just give you some food for thought or start a conversation with what I share, I think it's already given me a reason to survive.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. Thanks, Viv. I'm wondering now if you could explain how you became involved in the actual creation of art and craft and what mediums you use.
Yeah, to be honest, this happened is as a surprise for me in this journey. I'm not a natural art gifted person, or either my concept of art was very different before. I remember that I always say we got the artistic genes from somewhere else, from the family or in a very long time ago, because not me. Obviously, I couldn't even draw a cat without putting meow meow next to it so that people know it's a cat, you know. So for the whole perception about the art change, and now looking back, I think thanks to B, because being her mother, who's very talented and had such a natural gift for art, I witnessed the whole journey with her while she was exploring art and sometimes craft as well. And actually, it gave me a lot of food for thoughts about how art is meant to be, although sometimes we didn't really agree with each other as much. Um, B started drawing since very early age, around like 3 or 4, since she could start holding a pen. She was such a big fan of Mickey Mouse, Disney cartoons, and later then is very fond into Japanese manga and anime. She doodled anime characters everywhere, like in her notebooks, wherever there are any empty space, that's where you can find her drawings and doodles. Um, she took up some art class and she did the whole art object in year 11, and her artwork was really amazing. It they not only good at colors, textures, but it also reflect her deep thoughts about life. Um, I'm still amazed about the choice of colors that she got. And given the fact that for someone who doesn't know much about art like me, I find a lot of things to think about watching her artwork. And sometimes it's just all me. I have no words for that because how deep and profound her thoughts are. Um, so the art inspiration that B brought to me is amazing. She was interested in the virtual design and sculpture as well. We usually spend our weekends visiting some regional areas where the art galleries or exhibitions is, like around Sydney or Blue Mountain or some other small town. And one trip was very memorable trip for B. It was the trip to Mona Art Museum in Tasmania. She even wrote an article about that in her art journal. Um, B was very interested in creating things with clay as well. So she bought a clay toolkit just 2 months before she left. And after her funeral, when I was tidying up her room, I found that art toolkit, and it just prompted me to start doing something with it. Because when I'm doing something that B love to do, I feel close to her and connect her to her with some sort. So the first item that I made using her toolkit was a heart with angel wings, and out from polymer clay. It became an ornament for me to survive the first Christmas without her. I wanted to say a little bit about that ornament because it was the first thing that I ever made with clay, and also first thing I do something properly with art. I didn't pay attention to the baking instructions. It's a polymer clay, so it requires some baking instructions, but I didn't read it. So I was so focused in making it, and then when I bake it, I burned it somehow because the temperature is so high. It turned out to be like chocolate color rather than gray one, but it's just really something born in me since then. It's a new hobby or passion that I really fond of. So I started creating a lot with clay whenever I have time, and it helps me go through the very dark moments or hard time. I remember my first big project with clay was create about 50 um, rainbow themed pocket hugs to donate to Quest for Life Foundation. I was at Quest before to attend a healing workshop, and I found they're very helpful there, and I'm not alone in my grief journey. There are also other people who are suffering. So by creating that pocket hugs, I wanted to do something to help people or bring some people comfort with the things I created, and that's the way how I find art to start with. Talking about the mediums, so most of the thing is I create now with the clay, any kind of clay. So I started with polymer clay, as I mentioned, and then later then I learned some pottery. I start with ceramics as well, and now at the moment I have a special interest in bento clay. That like a silver or bronze. So I learned to do uh, to make the steps with that, and each medium gives me a good outlet for my creativity. And the interesting thing is that the techniques I use from one medium can be applied for another mediums. So it's just like creativity circles just keep going, So I learned a lot from working with clays and learning how to make things with it.
That sounds
yeah.
really, really interesting that you can move from one medium to another so easily, Viv.
I think that it is like it's also the shift in my art perspective as well, because like when I look at art now, I look at it's very um, different perspective. It's a part of life. And I remember saying from Van Gogh that I read before that art is comfort for people who are broken by life. See, and during my journey, that's moments when I can create and then lean into art. I did got some comfort from it, and I start seeing things in these eyes now.
So that's one of the things that art has helped you cope with your grief. Are there other ways that art's helped you cope with that grief?
Oh, art and craft helped me tremendously in my grief journey. I can go on and on about it, but I think just to sum it up, how art helped me with my grief journey, I can say that at different levels and aspects. For example, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and a lot of connections. So I can go one by one. All right.
Yeah, that is
so. Yeah, with emotionally to start with, I think art is a very beautiful outlet to do with intense emotions. I think that people in grief might know what I'm referring to, which is called tsunami, right? So this is when all the emotions caused by the death of your loved ones are getting so intense, and sometimes we feel like we couldn't breathe. So art is the thing that will calm you down and have you grounded. For me, it's like a way of meditate, although I'm not very good at meditation, but with art, yes, I can do something about it. So when I create things with clay, I focus all my senses in making things, and I can feel my intense emotions flow through me. For example, in pottery, we learn how to make a pinch pot. So you have a bowl of clay, and then you use your fingers to shape it into a pot, and starting with a pinch. So in order to do that, I need to use all my senses to make it. My fingers to touch it and feel the clay. I listen to my pinching and look at the ball of clay and even smell it. So all my focus is there, and I'm being there in the now. I don't even think about the past or worry about the future. I think that's where when I'm with myself and doing that, I understand why people say sit with grief and sit with your feelings, because that's the way how to be in present moments and don't let the mind make you suffer a lot from all the narratives you have in mind or worries much about the future. So that's emotionally. Art helped me mentally as well. I think art is very good therapy for mental well-being. Losing your loved one is already a tragedy, right? And I lose my only child. I think it's a tragic trauma. And it's such an out of order death because we never expected that we will go after our kids. So some sort I go through trauma, and I experience some post-trauma symptoms, more or less. I have a lot of flashbacks about the day, a lot of feelings associated with my trauma, like guilt, anxiety, and they are all very intense. So in the first days, it was kind of the shock that I didn't really realize much. But after a few months down on the road, when the shock started wearing off, I have a lot of flashbacks and everything triggers me. Everything bring me back to the day when B died. So for me, getting something that I can distract me from going down that spiral is art, because the colors, the textures, and I also need to look at a lot of tutorials to help me to do things and make things. And by doing that, I got lost in the art world, and it can help me to cope with flashbacks and trauma. Art also bring me and encourage a lot of curiosity in me, which I think is very important for the grievers. Because for me, curiosity is the first step of being courageous. If you stay focused, if you stay curious about that, the what things will unfold for you, I think you will set your mind or mentality in the ready mode, um, and how to deal with it. So watching the things in the YouTube um, helped me to reduce my anxiety level a lot. Being curious about what I'm going to create, being curious about how people are doing it, um, give me a lot of outlets and then help me to learn a lot of new things. More than that, I think that B also is very keen in art when I was not before. Now she's gone and my perspective about art changed. So if I do something with art, I feel connected to her as that is something she wanted me to do. And I also feel that I'm making a living amends to her because that's my way to show B that I'm sorry, B, I didn't understand about art before, but now I understand about it. Yeah. And by doing and making things, I feel that I achieved something and build up my self-esteem a little more, which is already lost when I lost B.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so that mentally, physically, yeah, that's very new aspect that I can think of. But I think that art also can help you physically. I don't mean that like I can compare it with like going to the gym or something like that. But with art, you can have a routine and it keeps your hands busy. I remember reading somewhere they say that our hands are the antennas of our souls. So when you are in the pain, you're making things with your hand, and by that way you can heal the pain. Somehow it helps me to heal my pain, especially like help me to sleep. I usually had a very hard time to sleep, or I woke up in the middle of the night. But what I did at that time, I didn't force myself to sleep. I just went to my room and then choose a small and simple thing to make with the clay. And once I finish making it, I feel a bit achieved something and then can go back to my sleep without using any medication. So art and craft is something to keep your hands moving and also keep a routine. And that's why I think that it helps with it, me physically. And also recently I tried the pottery and and knitting is a way for me to gain some muscles. I feel because it may sound funny, but I feel like it's healthy than other hobbies, right? So I don't need to have, for example, if I want to sleep, I take any sleeping medication, or if I want to stay awake, I take coffee. But with art, things just happen naturally, and I don't need to take anything chemicals. So and they say manual work make you sleep better, and I do believe in it. After creating, you feel exhausted somehow, like your mind and also physically. So all I can do is to help me to gain a little bit of muscles and let myself be in the moment, and that tremendously contribute to my physical health. Um, so the next one I want to mention that how art helped me is spiritually. Um, so the death of the child had challenged all the things I thought I knew about life and death and universe, right? In general. I don't mean that it encouraged the. Don't want to talk about religion here, because I think that we all have our own faith and our belief system. Um, but when talking about spirituality, I think that after B died, I started reading a lot about spiritual world, about soul's journey and afterlife. And to be honest, it helped. It gave me some comfort. I feel like what we know so far about life and death is very limited. It's just like looking through a keyhole, you know. So I want to learn more about that, and I feel that there's something about life that we don't know. Death may not be a final thing. Um, and by thinking of that or going deep into spiritually, it gives me some hope that one day I can still see B again, and I can. And in the meantime, I can connect with her, and by creating things, that's why how I can connect with her. I feel like B is going just going to another dimensions. And now, in order to talk to her, I can use other channel, and art is one of the channel that where I can communicate. It's also the channel for me to express on my understanding, what I learned so far about life, death, and universe. And when I create, I feel like create new memories with B, doing what she enjoyed doing and continue our bonding. For example, when I look at the new clay portrait I made for her, I see it as the new photo that I took of her. If I make a new vase, I feel like it's kind of new present that I got for her. So it shows my love and my missing her, and it doesn't stop when she died. By doing that, I continue the bonding wherever she is. So the last thing I want to mention here, that how art helped me in this grief journey, is like to help me to connect with outside. What I mean outside here is like the both non-grieving normal world and the grieving community. So with the non-grieving community, or I call it like normal society, right? So when I start creating, I need to join a community and learn from people who have that hobby, and how to learn how they do it. So I joined a lot of Facebook groups like polymer clay, mental clay, pottery, and art helps me to connect with those people who have the same hobby. And I met a lot of interesting people there, and it broadens my view about the world. It gives me a new perspective of the new world, where I can connect with people just simply by hobbies and doing the thing that I'm passionate about, without talking about my grief, or just give me some break from the grief. It's also a way for me to tell myself that I'm still a part of society. I'm just grieving. I still can connect with other normal people in my normal world. Um, yeah, and then that's the outside world, with the normal society who is not having the same grief experience like I have. I also find art connect me with the community who are grieving. This is very important community for me, because there's a healing there when you can relate your pain with others, and for those who can get it. I use art not only for my grief processing, as I mentioned above, but I also connect it and use it to help and support my fellow grievers. I make a lot of keepsake items for my grief friends, like clay portraits and candle holders, and jewelry for my great friends, to memorize their loved one. And by doing that, I feel that I help them, and help them to focus in how their loved one lived. We had been focused too much about the death and the fact that they died. So we need to talk more about how they lived as well. So keepsakes or items or any clay creations that I made is something that I can provide the support to my fellow grievers, and help them to have something to hold on to and carry their loved one with them. Um, Talking about support, helping is healing. It brings to another level of the how art and craft help me, is to find the meaning and purpose. And because, as you know, that I lost B, my only child, I feel like all my purpose is gone with her. I even don't know who I am, because uh, I'm not the mother physically anymore, right? So it's very important for me to find something to hold on to, and then purpose why I'm still here, you know. And in order to do that, I create, and with creating, with art, I find my new identity, and I find my new hobby, and find a new me that I learn how to accept. Um, and here's the most important thing for me, is that by creating with art and craft, I continue to honor Bee's love of art, and I can carry on her legacy. Um, So I can not only help myself, I help other, but I also can turn my hobby into something that connect with people. And even like with the items I made, I can sell them to fundraise for B scholarship. So we do have a set up scholarship in B's former school, they call Resilience Scholarship. So it's for the students in year 11 and year 2, in 11 year 12, who achieve very excellent academic performance, and also going through the hardship with resilience. So we commit with that for 5 years. This is the second year now, and I really want to see it going and continue in the future. Um, it's just something to give me a purpose and keep me going. Even without be here, I still can do something that she loves, and I can spread her love around. So that's the how art and craft help me.
That resilience scholarship sounds pretty wonderful, Viv.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like it's a real way of helping other people, particularly young people who might be struggling and who face some difficulties.
Yeah, so that's the way how to spread peace love around. Yeah.
Thank you. Wow, that's so much of how art really helps you cope with your grief. I'm wondering if you could tell us now a little bit about your hopes for the future.
To be honest with you, if you talk about hope and future in the early days of my grief, like last year, I may not have the answer for you. And find very hard to come up with something. Um, Future is a very scary word for me, because as what I could see in my early days of grief is the loss and all the shattered plans, like the thing that I would not have with B anymore. So for me, in that early days of grief, some days just be able to get out of bed, be functional, go to work is already a big win for me. I think the loss of a child is very, uh, is such a tragedy, unbearable pain, and learning how to live with it is the only thing I need to do is just to learn how to carry this, and one day at a time and one thing at a time.
I hope that
But
question
yeah,
is an okay question to talk about future, Viv.
yeah, well, I really want to continue to say, although it's scary, but I still have a belief that there's a hope. And when I say a hope here is that the hope that one day I will be able to get through this grief journey, learn to live with the absence of my child, and remember her with more love than pain. So with that hopes, I try to interpret it into a very specific things that I can do, or the thing that I can am passionate to do it about. Um, and I think that you can translate it into the future plans in that sense with that hope, right? So through the lens of art, I feel that art and craft can bring me some things for me to do that I'm passionate about, and in the near future and the long future, so that I can focus my energy, my love in, and hopefully with that along the way it will help me go through this journey. So what I want to do, I want to share it here when you ask about the near future and then long future. Yeah. So in the meantime, what I want to do is that I want to continue with creating with clay. um, Being creative helps me and helps other, like I said before, so I just continue with that. I want to learn more about metal clay, like silver or gold, so that I can be more specialized in creating memorial jewelry or keepsakes, and by that way I can help my fellow griefers and become like grief companion. um, um, Also, I want to continue the clay art brand that I created in memory of B is that I call business keepsake. So by that way, I will honor B's love of art and using it as an outlet to connect with people and fundraise for B scholarship and support other people in the grief, in their journey. I also want to apply what I learned in grief education training, also my experience over the last 2 years, to help people who are grieving like me, especially the who are bereaved by suicide. The focus on the good memories of their loved ones and focus in the life that they lived and create hope and healing for them. Recently, I just finished a website called Business Keepsake, and well, that's where I can showcase my artwork, share my grief journey experience by writing and also creating, and I also provide a grief peer support by providing some free hold on memory sections to the fellow grievers. So that's when I can meet with them. They can share the memories of their loved one with me, and then I will create a keepsake item to honor their loved one and send that to them. So by doing that, I hope that I can help them in their healing and also remember the good things. In the long run, I want to see I'm more involved in community projects. Whatever the projects that support the people who lived with the suicide loss. I wanted to make to organize or co-organize or cooperate with other organizations like Grief Journey to organize the art workshop to encourage people to honor their loved one and also encourage people to create so that can help them along their grief journey, especially in the suicide aftermath where a lot of healing needs to be done. And remind people that our loved one lived, and they are defined at how they lived, not by how they died. And by doing all of that, I would like to see myself become a grief educator, not only helping the grievers, and also through art. I would like to convey the messages about the loss and grief to raise communities' awareness about loss and death, and then by that way to support grievers, because I see that I feel that we live in quite of death or loss or grief illiterate society at the moment. A lot of things that can be done better for the grievers. So I really want to see myself working on that as well. So these are my hopes for the future. I hope that you can find something useful from there, from what I share.
Oh, well, Viv, thank you. Our conversation has now come to an end. So for those listening, I hope you have found something useful from Viv's grief journey and how art promotes purpose, curiosity, mindfulness and hope. It is a connector to those who have died and with others. If anyone is interested in accessing Viv's website, the address is www.beeskneeskeepsake.com. And to you, Viv, thank you so much for sharing your grief journey and the part that art has played in it with us today. I'm sure your words will resonate with many of us and the wisdom that you have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. Thank you, everyone.